Isn't this fun to sit here with these lights on you and everyone watch you sit on stage? Awesome, awesome. So if you get your little toggle over, and if you have any issue, you can hand down and I can help you with your toggle. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for being here with us today. So we'll get into some of the questions that we received ahead of time and move through. And what we'll do, we'll ask everyone a round of questions, and then we'll come back around for our second round and see where time takes us. So we can, of course, be mindful of everyone's time, and Nellie can help you with your toggles if you need it. Awesome. There we go. Well, I'll direct this first question here to Mr. Hanna and Mayor Hertz. And as we talked about water just a moment ago, let's continue to do that. In the presentation, we touched, of course, on securing water supply and the West Texas Water Partnership and continuing work in developing Cedar Ridge Reservoir is something that's still out there for us. So also just last Friday, we had council retreat, and that was, of course, part of the conversation as well that you guys talked about where to place that in priorities. So just kind of remind everyone here, how did that settle out Friday, and what exactly is happening with those initiatives to further secure our future water supply?
So we always have to. My toggle broke. So we have been talking about water since forever, right? It's that topic that's so important for Abilene, and Rodney Taylor and those children did such a great job of kind of illustrating the importance of that. But we have done a number of things over the last 10 years to really reinvest in our water supplies. The first, of course, was attaching to the Brazos Rivers Authority's system with Possum Kingdom. And as we kind of come in and out of different water restrictions with the lack of rain we've had recently, we're getting ready to activate and start our Possum Kingdom system for the first time. We're probably about maybe 12 months away from that. So we'll be ready to go when we need it. So that's one outcome of the retreat. The other thing I would say is the Cedar Ridge Reservoir. We paused when we had what we perceived to be perhaps a less favorable administration in the White House on that project. And now we have what we perceive to be a more favorable administration. And we also went through COVID during that time. And so we're picking the Cedar Ridge project back up and pursuing it in earnest. The state of Texas is supposedly going to issue our draft water rights permit here in the next month or so, which will be very helpful. And then we'll start again in earnest with the Corps of Engineers to permit and construct the dam facilities. And then finally, with the West Texas Water Partnership, this is something that was really forward-looking. And Mayor Archibald was one of the main architects behind that. And we worked with the city of San Angelo and the city of Midland to pull about 25,000 acre-feet of groundwater in Pecos County. And now we're in the process of engineering and designing how this water gets to the various partner cities. So these things aren't easy to do, and it takes a commitment on elected officials' part throughout the times to do it, because every elected official comes in and has a new idea. But we've been very consistent and very lucky and very blessed with excellent political leadership, and I would expect that to continue under Mayor Hertz's leadership.
Awesome, thank you. Our next question here coming for Abilene ISD and Dr. Kuhn. The district has been very busy in strategic planning, as some folks may know, as you plan for our kids. And just a few weeks ago, AISD announced the first phase of change with the sunsetting of 2 elementary schools and kickoff of a choice program for elementary families. So could you explain just a little more of what we can expect here this coming year and the why behind these changes being made for the district?
Yeah, so about 9 or 10 months ago, I fell through that black hole and I landed in Abilene. And what an exciting time and an exciting place to be. Super, super excited to see all the things that are happening here. It's a great place to live. And the Board of Trustees, Abilene ISD, made it very clear to me when they offered me the job that they wanted me to have a vision with my team for the future of Abilene ISD. And I've always believed that what's good for a school district is good for a city, and what's good for a city is good for a school district. We have to work in concert to benefit this region. Abilene ISD has to be an asset for Abilene, Texas. We just saw this great collection of assets from the zoo to the youth sports centers and all of those things. Abilene ISD needs to make sure that we do our part to be something that people look at and say, I want to be a part of Abilene, Texas. When business owners look at this region and decide whether or not to move a business here, they need to know that we will provide a workforce for them, not just us and Wiley and the other schools as well. And then when residents are looking at these houses that infill is fixing up, they need to say, am I content, am I happy with the schools that are available for my children? And so I came here with that vision. And it's something I feel very deeply as an advocate for public education, that I owe it to this city to provide an excellent educational service for the people who depend on us, and also for the good of the future of not only this community, but the state and the nation. And so the Building Brighter Futures initiative that we have in Abilene ISD is all about that vision. I came here to work with a very talented team of people to make positive change happen, and happen quickly for the good of this city and the good of the people we serve. So there are 4 components with Building Brighter Futures that I'll touch on as quickly as I can. The first one is transitioning from 13 elementary schools to 11. That's the hardest part. It's very difficult for people to look and say we're losing the campus in our community. But for us to operate efficiently and to efficiently utilize taxpayer dollars, which are in limited supply, and we don't want to be wasteful, it makes sense for us to transition from 13 to 11 campuses. Those 2 buildings, Ortiz and Thomas Elementary, will continue to operate next year for 2nd through 5th graders who choose to remain, and those who choose to transition to their new campuses. There's a process for them to choose the campus they'll go to, and we're doing that right now. Those buildings will continue to be used. We'll continue to honor the Thomas and Ortiz families by keeping those names attached to those buildings, but they're going to be used for different purposes in the future, and that's still being hammered out exactly what we're going to use those for. The parental choice pilot, or the school choice pilot that we're operating, we're taking 3 schools, Stafford, Martinez, and Purcell, and instead of saying, hey, you live in the Stafford attendance zone, you have to go to Stafford, what we're saying is, you live in the Stafford attendance zone, you can go to Stafford, or you can go to Martinez, or you can go to Purcell. You have choices. And that applies to all 3 of those campuses. They can choose any of those 3 campuses. There are school districts that do this. One of the school districts we visited with was Longview. They have open enrollment district-wide. And what they have found is that most people choose to remain at their community school, and so we anticipate most people will remain at their community schools. But giving people choices is a great thing. We want to satisfy our customers. We want people to be happy with the services that we offer. So we feel like the school choice pilot, it's very different. It's a very novel thing that we're doing. I don't think it's been done in Abilene ISD before, so we're excited about that. 2 other components I'll mention just real quickly is academic specializations. We heard loud and clear. We went on a listening tour, and we had a committee of community members and also staff, faculty. And we asked them, what do you want to see? What are your hopes and dreams for the future of Abilene ISD? And one of the things that we heard over and over again was we want more opportunities for advanced academics for our children. And so what we are proposing and what we're working towards is to take the Stafford model that many of you may be familiar with. Stafford does some really innovative things there. They do the Ron Clark Academy model, which is where kids are in 4 different houses, and it's almost like schools within a school or little families within a school. And so basically inspired by that model, we want to have more of that. We have a lot of academic specializations, Holland Medical High School, the LIFT, we have the Center for Innovation at McMurray, which is kind of a STEM magnet school. Our community told us we want more of those kinds of advanced academic options. And so not only do we want to let people choose their school, does my child go to this school or that school, we want to also have those schools embrace things like Stafford has done with the Ron Clark model, so that parents have really, really cool things to choose from in addition to having the freedom to choose. And then lastly, there are a lot of grant opportunities through TEA right now to embed things like STEM opportunities and advanced academics in schools. And so it's very timely right now to begin looking at how can we offer those things so that we can take advantage of those grant funds to help enhance what we offer the community.
Awesome, thank you. We'll talk to Superintendent Joey Light now over at our friends over at Wiley. And so for us, we know Wiley, as we know him for several years, of course, now, is responding to a bit of the opposite issues for AISD, as you have, of course, quickly increasing in student enrollment. So, of course, 2023, as you talked to us last year, too, the district voted that $240 million in bond money that was passed. So that was all very much so aimed at expanding facilities, programs to handle so much of that growth. So can you give us an an update on how those projects are going and what's coming down the pike on that.
Sure, but before I do that, I want to take this opportunity to, I appreciate Doug being here today. You know, Doug hadn't been in front of lights like this since the last time we were in a police lineup, and I'm glad to see that you're out on parole for today. It's a big step, and that 12-step program is going to come in handy.
I have a microphone too,
Oh,
Joey.
boy, okay. Let me just say, first of all, that we really appreciate our community stepping up to the plate, and it's such a big ask that we had. A lot of members of our school board are here today, and you know, when we got the results of the bond election, we just felt like it was time to get after it. And so the charge from the board was, hey, Joey, you need to get out there and do as much as you can, as fast as you can with the bond money that we have, so our community can see that we're serious about what we've told them. I feel like I may need to be on the sloth exhibit at the Abilene Zoo, because it just takes a while to get out there and get some of these things done. Immediately, the board meeting right after the bond election, commitments were made. 3,000 Chromebooks were purchased. We had 11 buses ordered. We immediately started the process of building 12 tennis courts. We started working on a turf field, surprisingly, mainly for our bands, to get those kiddos off the parking lot during the heat of the summer. We also, that same turf field is going to be used for baseball, softball, soccer, and football, so it's going to be really utilized. We're really proud of that. Our first issue, because of the crowd that we have, the enrollment growth at our high school, was to work towards getting a high school addition as quickly as we could, and we're looking at a 60 classroom addition, but in order to put it to where we felt like it needed to be, we first needed to build an ag building. So currently we are working on an ag building. We're about ready to pour the foundation for that. We are also working on a new elementary, which is down Buffalo Gap Road. If you'll turn to the west at Buffalo Gap and 707, we're about 800 yards down the road on the south side, and we're got a lot of dirt work done, and they've worked on getting the pad in shape so we can start the process on that foundation. Let me just say that we've got other things that are on our agenda. One is expansion of our East Intermediate. We built basically phase 1 of our East Intermediate, and we'll build a phase 2. And as we work towards those things, we're also reaching back to the campuses that are over 30 years old, and we're giving them a facelift. We're putting in new flooring, we're painting, and we're also addressing the infrastructure on technology. We're recabling campuses, and we're making sure that we've got Wi-Fi that can handle the load of all these new Chromebooks we bought. So it's an exciting time to be in Wiley ISD. Our demographers are predicting we'll have about 7,500 kids. We currently have 5,500 in the next 6 or 7 years. So we've got to get ready for those kids, and that's what we're doing. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Well, as we talk about growth south side, of course, for Wiley, that goes out into the county as well. So talk to Judge Phil Crowley too about this. Talk about, what is that looking like for the county as there maybe needs for infrastructure investment, and then, in particular, in this last election cycle, knowing that for Sheriff Ricky Bishop talking about the immediate investment maybe in his department and those facilities. So where do things stand for you all with the county?
Thank you, appreciate that.
Good afternoon, Maury. Thank you for hosting us here today. We really appreciate it. I know you did a lot of work on it. I also want to congratulate you on that viral video with Councilwoman Albus reminding everyone to clean up after their dog. And I want you to know I nominated that for Academy Award for Best Short Documentary. So fingers crossed in April. We'll see what happens. Infrastructure is always a challenge, just in terms of roads. That's what you think of first, right? Sorry, Mayor, for mentioning roads. It always, like I said, it always comes up, right? We spend about $6.3 million on roads. A lot of roads for Wiley, for instance, are state highways, and so they work on those and kind of maintain those. But we do, of course, have some county roads that we keep up. Belle Plains Road is important to Wiley ISD, important to Jim Ned, so that's a big road we work on in terms of schools. With the rest of the infrastructure, though, this last budget, we were looking at about $16 million of infrastructure projects that we need to work on. Things like re-roofing the jail. It was a 20, 30-year-old roof that we need to replace, and that cost had doubled in recent years. We need to look at fiber projects to make sure that the county stays connected, especially in times of emergency, adding a second layer of connectivity. We also wanted to look at the Expo Center, repaving the Expo Center, because a lot of people may not realize the Expo Center brings in, just a conservative estimate, and this is before all the upgrades, $20 million a year to the local economy. So that's something that the county really wants to maintain and improve so that we can continue contributing to the economy. Also, in terms of infrastructure, two more things I kind of want to draw your attention to. Something that the county really spends a lot of money on is law and order. And one portion of that, of course, is the sheriff's office, constable's office. I'll get to that in a second. But the court system, the law portion. And we spend $12 million a year on 15 different courts that hear different cases around the county. But it's not just the courts, so you have to support the district clerk and the county clerk. That's another $2 million. You have to support the DA's office that represents the state. That's another $5 million a year. You have to pay for court-appointed attorneys for criminal cases or CPS cases. That's another $5 million a year. And so that's something that the county really spends a lot of money on. Something I wanted to talk about that I talked about last year, I said that the Taylor County EMS calls, which is a nonprofit, their calls have doubled since 2015, so we want to go out for bid and get some more ambulance service. We've now tripled our ambulance service out in the county. So we've gone from one full-time and one part-time ambulance to 3 full-time stations. You have one in Tuscola, 24/7, first time ever. We have one 24/7 station in Merkel, first time since 2015. And then you also have that View Caps station 24/7 still. And moral of the story, our response times have dropped by almost 50% since October. So that's another important infrastructure. Yeah, we're excited about that. Thank you. You mentioned the sheriff's office. Part of the reason I ran for county judge was to spend more money on public safety. On public safety, get that second part. As a prosecutor, that was really important to me, and I wanted to increase our emergency services like the ambulance, but also the sheriff's office. So out of a $110 million budget, we spent about $33 million on the sheriff's department and the jail, so it is a significant investment. We did add 4 sheriff office employees this year. We added a detective to hear cases sent from patrol, work on those cases. Added a school resource officer to make sure that our rural school districts are protected. Added 2 correctional officers at the jail. And those 4 alone were $250,000. So you can imagine if you start increasing a bunch at one time, what that's going to do to the budget. But we are trying to slowly increase like we did this year. But something to keep in mind, besides just the people, you have to pay for Tahoes for them, you have to pay for equipment for them, and so it gets pretty expensive pretty quick, but we do want to keep adding people as we can.
Awesome, thank you. A question here for Doug Peters of the Chamber. As we kind of turn our attention a little bit more back to downtown, of course, hearing about Cypress Street earlier. But of course, the Chamber is home to the Downtown Initiative. And so a question here talks a little bit more about how that supports downtown business and really what are you hearing from the Chamber, within the Chamber, from your members of how downtown business is doing, how healthy it is, and what they need.
Well, first of all, thank you, Maury, for all your hard work, and Mayor, great job earlier. Robert, your retirement's rejected. You have to stick around a little bit longer. We're not done. We have more work to do. Downtown is a very unique environment. It was designed and laid out and built back before the advent of the automobile. That's why our streets are wide enough to turn a team of horses. So there are some unique challenges that come with downtown environments. But I will tell you that through a process that we undertook back, I think in 2016, the Chamber was able to bring roughly 1,200 individuals from all around the region, folks that you wouldn't think have any interest in our downtown. But we tried to encourage people to participate in this vision casting exercise by telling them that downtown is really everybody's neighborhood. And we had a lot of great participation, a lot of great vision. You can't do all of it. I remember taking that final document over to Robert Hanna, and he said, who's going to pay for all that? And I said, well, the beauty of this plan is that if we do it right and we do it together, it doesn't need to be a taxpayer burden. It can be driven in large part by the private sector. And I think you're seeing a lot of private sector investment in the downtown. It's incumbent on all of us to support those businesses that are downtown, just like we support those businesses along Buffalo Gap Road, the construction process that started back in 1928 out on Buffalo Gap. We have to remember they're there. We have to remember they're struggling. We have to remember that if we don't go there, chances are no one else will either. And that same thing stands true with our own downtown. Downtown to me is a very important first impression for folks who visit our community, just like our airport. People make a snap judgment on how well we as a community take care of ourselves when they come into the downtown, and that's why we're so lucky as a community to have people like Judy Matthews and the Dodge Jones Foundation, who laid an incredible foundation for all of us to kind of stand on. And there's just so much going on, but I would encourage you to think about how you can be an active part in supporting just one small component of this community. We are so fortunate to have a downtown that is not on a respirator, that is thriving. But those folks have challenges, just like any other business in any other part of our community, and it takes all of us to help address those.
Thank you. Moving over to Missy Mayo with the DCOA. It's been such a chill time for you, such a chill time. President Trump's announcement of Project Stargate did bring national attention to data center development, and so Abilene has certainly been part of that conversation with all that. So DCOA's, of course, your innovative approach has brought in so many projects, namely also coming in here with the Lansing project, which was over 3 years ago, but the kind of sort of stress point for us is that for Abilene, that was over 3 years ago. This has been something developing, but of course, as it becomes more news and buzzwords out there, a lot of people are now coming back and they're asking, what exactly is Lansing? What does this mean for us here in Abilene? And just what should we expect here in the months and years to come?
Thank you, Mari. So the Development Corporation works to grow a future for Abilene. We're working every day to grow a future for you, for your family members. I always say that I work every day to ensure that my children can stay in Abilene and can work here and prosper and grow their families. I say that it takes a tremendous amount of work, and you're hearing from everyone up here the teamwork, the community together that we're building. Now, the DCOA is laser focused on accomplishing two things and growing that future. The two things are growing the commercial tax base, and we're growing new jobs, because it's with new jobs and with new tax base that we're able to guarantee the prosperity of our community for years to come. Now, Lansing, of course, is the most notable, I will say. Over the last 5 years, we've worked at the DCOA to attract 40 company expansions. That is a record number. Most of the largest projects in the history of our community have happened in the last 5 years. And when I say happened, what I'm talking about is these companies like Lansing and Caruso are making a commitment to be a part of our community. They're making a commitment to spend their money in Abilene and grow that commercial tax base. So with us today, we have representatives from Lancium and Crusoe. So welcome home to Abilene. We have spent almost 5 years working with Lancium on the development that apparently has been just an overnight success in the last 2 weeks. You know, you work 5 years for 2 weeks worth of recognition. So thank you very much for that, Lancium. Lancium is building a master development for a data center. Everyone has a phone. I know you probably have your phone in your hand right now. Those phones require data. It's a giant electronic filing cabinet. I say that with hesitation to the Lancium folks because that's a little dismissive of how complicated it is and what a complex type of industry it is. What it does represent for Abilene is a new industry. And again, when we're able to grow commercial tax base and diversify the types of jobs and the types of industries, that diversification is a strength and is a future for Abilene.
Awesome, thank you. I know we want to be mindful of folks' time here, so as we get a little closer to the 5 o'clock, we're about 4:40 right now. So I think we can make just one more round and just sort of, keep things moving for a moment before we wrap things up here for today. So wanted to follow up quickly here as we also, just talking about Lansing with DCUA. And so again, for Mayor and Mr. Hanna, there's been questions as we just talked about water. What does the water component mean for something like these data centers? And is there a concern there or conversation around that?
Thank you, Mayor. So one of the great advantages of partnering with wonderful companies like Lancium and Crusoe is that they really take into account their environmental footprint and their environmental accountability. They have a new way or a responsible way of cooling their systems with a closed loop system. And we are working with them and they're working with us to be able to do industrial pretreatment of the discharge of that water as it leaves the system, so it's able to be used again in other areas as it goes through the whole nature's process in our treatment facilities. So I really just want to applaud them publicly for thinking about that coming here in West Texas, knowing that's an issue for us. And then energy as well. They have also a big thing. We had a citizen come to the council meeting today and talk about, what's going to happen if we have another winter storm. Well, again, the beauty of Lancium and Crusoe's approach is that they're planning ahead for that. They're making sure they have the energy resources and energy production capability to handle their own needs. And so they're not going to be this big drain on the grid. So I'm excited that they're here. I'm excited about their community engagement and the responsible nature in which they're growing their business.
Robert, let me add that we are excited about Lansing being here, and we're proud. Abilene, Texas, Taylor County, this area is going to have the biggest data center in the country, maybe in the world. These are questions that we ask these companies. We ask about water. We ask about the use of power. And they gave us responsible answers. And I just want to say, once again, we are excited that they are here.
Dr. Kuhn, coming back to you as you were, talking about the strategic plan, and I think a lot of questions around the word. You're using the word choice, and of course, as we know with the school voucher conversations going on, that does, when you come to the word choice, it does bring some concern with that. So, talk to us about the intention behind using the word choice, as you did a little bit, and what this means for making sure all schools and kids are well supplied for.
Yeah, so we chose to use the word choice on purpose. We want to co-opt that whole idea. Obviously, most people in this area are opposed to vouchers. I'm opposed to vouchers, and the voucher movement has called itself the school choice movement, and it's a misnomer because parents have always had choices in Texas. You can send your kid to Abilene ISD. You can send your kid to Wiley ISD. You can send your kid to one of the surrounding smaller school districts. You can homeschool. You can send them to a private school. You can put them on your computer and do K-12 online education. So there's tons of choices for parents. And we want to expand that internally so that if you are at a school and you feel like another school best suits your needs or the needs of your child, that you as a parent feel like you have the freedom to choose between those schools. And we want to expand this idea across the entire district. So I mentioned earlier that what we're doing this year involves 3 schools, Stafford, Purcell, and Martinez, and we're calling that Circle 1. That is a circle of schools. And what we envision with this pilot next year is if we work out all the kinks and it is well received by our parents and our students and they like having that freedom to choose, and if they don't want to choose, they're free to stay in their community school, and we think most people will. But if the model works, we get all the kinks worked out when it comes to transportation, when it comes to all the logistics of choosing, then we would like to have 4 circles in the following school year, so that wherever you live in Abilene ISD, you have a choice of 2 or 3 schools rather than just the school you're assigned to. But yeah, calling it a school choice pilot or a parent choice pilot, we did that deliberately, really to communicate that inside the public school system, parents have lots of choices, and we're proud of that.
Thank you. Superintendent Light, you became a very popular guy with a lot of students when you all nixed the cell phones. How is that going? That was the question. How is that going for everyone?
Let me phone a friend and I'll tell you. No, let me just say this. Again, you know, whenever you are trying to do the best thing you can for kids, and I think we've got a staff that really looks at a lot of these issues, and at the time this came up, I think there was a groundswell of recognizing that social media and some of the things that come along with cell phones are not good for kids all the time. And so I'll say this, our high school principal, Reagan Berry, brought it to us. I thought, man, that's a big issue to take on. And she is very strong about her position on that. And so I've been really pleased and surprised at how well it's done. I just think that not only have our students bought into it, but our teachers have bought into it, and it's made it be successful. So I'm thankful that we were able to do that, and I think it's good for our kids, and I look forward to the future with that policy in place.
Thank you. To Judge Crawley, you know, I wanted to talk a little bit, as we've watched in the news, unfortunately, all the, you know, terrible situation for folks in LA with the fires. And I think seeing that reminded us all, of course, just a few years ago, what we were dealing with mesquite heat and all that. And of course, the great response that the Sheriff's Department had, and no loss of life in that. So it just kind of reminded us of that conversation as we get into, again, here we are with wildfire season. What the, I don't want to say temperature is, but with our volunteer fire departments, how are they doing? How do we best support them? And just what does that look like out there for us now?
Yeah, so we have 12 volunteer fire departments in Terra County, and they're phenomenal, heroes, every single one of them. Terra County is blessed that the View Fire Chief is also, just happens to be our Terra County Sheriff. That definitely comes in handy at times of emergency, so we're thankful for that. They're definitely prepared. You know, they're always prepared, and they're doing a great job. The county does try to support them. The last 3 years, the county has funded their requested increase. And then we also passed out about $16,000 in ARPA money to each of the 12 departments before the end of 2024. The public can definitely support them. Of course, judges can't fundraise, so I'm not telling you to give money to the volunteer fire departments, but that is an option. And people like options, right? And also, you can serve on a volunteer fire department, and we really need that. Volunteers on the department are down among most of them. There are some exceptions to that, but we need people to serve on those because the alternative, if that doesn't happen, is you might have to create an emergency services district that funds paid firefighters, and that would be another taxing entity, and the county really doesn't want to go down that road. So we hope we can keep this system going. One thing that also ties into it, what I wanted to say, I'm so thankful for DCOA and their board and Misty Mayo and Julie and the whole team for bringing Lancium in and all the other projects. Also thankful to the city for investing in DCOA and letting the county partner with y'all, because we're going to use that additional tax revenue each year to invest in emergency services. And one thing I wanted to point out, and a good example of that is the Sheriff's Office. Something else that I failed to mention last time that makes it tough. There's SB 22 money where each county under a certain population gets $500,000 each year from the state. And some of these smaller counties are using that money to invest in salaries. So we now have smaller counties around us that are able to pay their correctional officers more, their deputies more. And so what Terra County has focused on in the budget these last couple of years, instead of adding a bunch of new deputies and correctional officers all the time, is trying to get those salaries up. And so that's a challenge. And we're using our SB 22 money for things like rifles and things like that, equipment that the sheriff's office needs. And maybe we'll be able to afford with Lancium money down the line. But we don't have money for it right now. So it's really all circular, and just couldn't appreciate DCOA or City of Abilene more. Or Lancium.
I wanted to ask Doug with the Chamber, since we last met, and I'm asking this, of course, because the Chamber is home to the Military Affairs Committee as well, but since we last met, we did get that official announcement of Dias being home to the B-21 Raider coming down. So, of course, we're only going to know what we need to know when the Air Force needs to let us know what we need to know as far as with the Raider coming. But at this point in time, just how can we best prepare to capitalize, I think, from a business standpoint, on the opportunities that the B-21 may bring for folks?
Sure, that's a great question, and one that we get often. I want to first say that the work that the Chamber does, we accomplish very little on our own. If not for partnerships with organizations like the Development Corporation and their board, Misty and her great team, the City of Abilene, Taylor County, most of our schools, generally Wiley, we're in a very fortunate place. But with growth, with opportunity comes commitment. And about 73 years ago, the War Committee of the Abilene Chamber of Commerce converted into the Military Affairs Committee. And since that happened, this community has run alongside the interest of Dias Air Force Base, our airmen and their families, every single day. They are the Military Affairs Committee that is led by our Vice President, Gray Bridwell, has done an incredible job by utilizing volunteers like Katie Alford, Greg, and the whole crew. In fact, they, I think, leave tomorrow to go to Washington to tell the Abilene story and to be able to bring back support for Dias and our airmen. A lot happens inside that fence that we don't know about, and that's intentional, but I can tell you the fact that we have been able to get, that MAC has been able to get, that this community has been able to get the next generation long-range strike bomber and keep the B-1 flying. That impact to this community, the jobs, the relationships that we all have. Look next door, odds are you have an airman or a family member living pretty close to you. We go to church with these folks. We go to school with these folks. Having Dias is a big, big part of this community. And again, I want to publicly acknowledge the fact that we do this as a team. And if not for the support of the city, the county, and certainly the Development Corporation, it would be a much, much more difficult task.
Thank you, thank you. I'll have our last question here this afternoon for, of course, Missy with the DCOA. As we've heard about all the great projects and corporations you brought into town, but also part of the DCOA is, of course, sustaining business here in Abilene, too, as part of your vision. So I think a question for a lot of people is, if you are a local business owner, how do you tap into what the DCOA has to offer and to grow your business?
That's a great question, and I think it's important to point out that out of those 40 contracts that we've actually partnered with companies on, again, that's companies making a commitment to spend their money and grow new jobs and help retain existing jobs. Out of those 40, 33 of them have been with local existing companies. So 33, likely someone sitting next to you is a representative from one of those companies that the Development Corporation of Abilene has partnered with. That happens to, again, today's theme of together as a community. That happens because We have a city council that has made one of their major priorities encouraging economic growth. We have a county that has committed, a commissioner's court that has committed to economic development and partnering with the city. That's a real opportunity for us to truly launch our community to the next level, because you have everyone working together. You have a chamber with the business representation working together to grow the industry that we're bringing into Abilene. So how you contact the Development Corporation, how you see connections with those 40 companies that we've helped to expand in Abilene is you go to developabilene.com. We have each one of the companies represented, and the companies that have opportunities for jobs, the companies that have opportunities for vendor relationships, there is a link for each one of those companies at developabilene.com.